At the southern tip of Africa lies a country where ancient mountains pierce clouds older than memory, where the ocean crashes against cliffs that have witnessed the birth of humanity itself, and where the very stones whisper stories of transformation written in gold and blood. This is South Africa, a land where beauty isn't just seen, it's felt in the marrow of your bones, where every sunrise carries the weight of history, and every sunset promises redemption. Today, we journey through 12 wonders that don't just define a landscape, they define the soul of a nation. These aren't mere destinations, they're portals to understanding what it means to witness the sublime, to stand in the presence of the divine, and to remember that some places on earth exist not just to be seen, but to change us forever. Number 12. The Amphitheater, Drakensberg Mountains. High in the Drakensberg, where the earth reaches toward heaven with desperate longing, stands a wall of stone so perfect it seems carved by gods. The Amphitheater, a 5-kilometer crescent of basalt cliffs rising 1,000 meters into the sky, doesn't just dominate the landscape, it commands reverence. This is where the Tugela Falls, the world's second highest waterfall, plunges in a silver ribbon that catches light like scattered diamonds, falling so far that mist becomes prayer before it touches the earth. The Zulu call these mountains Ukalamba, barrier of spears, and standing beneath this colossal amphitheater, you understand why. The rock face isn't just geological, it's mythological. Ancient sand people painted their dreams on these walls, leaving behind a gallery of spiritual visions that span thousands of years. Their rock art speaks of shamanic journeys, of dancing figures reaching toward other worlds, of a time when the boundary between human and spirit was as thin as morning mist. But the amphitheater's true power lies not in its history, but in its ability to make you feel infinitely small and infinitely significant at the same time. When you stand at its base, surrounded by the endless grasslands of the Free State, and watch clouds form and dissipate around its crown, you realize you're witnessing something that predates human civilization by millions of years. This is stone that remembers when Africa was young, when the continents were still finding their place on the planet's surface. In its shadow, your troubles don't disappear, they transform into something manageable, something human-sized. The amphitheater doesn't just tower above the landscape, it elevates the spirit. Number 11. The Valley of Desolation, Karoo. In the heart of the Great Karoo, where silence has weight and solitude has texture, rises a forest of stone pillars that defy both logic and gravity. The Valley of Desolation near Graf Rene stretches like a surreal cathedral, its dolerite columns standing sentinel over a landscape so alien you might believe you've stepped onto another planet. These aren't just rock formations, they're monuments to time itself, sculpted by millions of years of erosion into towers that seem to lean against the sky. The Karoo has always been a place of extremes, scorching days that blur the horizon in heat waves, nights so cold they crack stone, and a silence so profound it becomes a presence of its own. But in the Valley of Desolation, these extremes converge into something transcendent. The pillars rise like frozen giants, some reaching 60 meters into the desert air, their surfaces worn smooth by wind and weather into sculptures that no human hand could improve. What makes this valley truly desolate isn't the absence of life, it's the presence of eternity. Standing among these stone sentinels, you feel the weight of geological time pressing down on your shoulders. This landscape has witnessed the rise and fall of species, the birth and death of rivers, the slow dance of continents. The indigenous Khoi people believe these formations were the work of ancestral spirits, and watching the light change across their surfaces at dawn and dusk, you understand why. There's something sacred about this desolation. Something that strips away the noise of modern life and leaves you alone with the fundamental questions of existence. In a world obsessed with noise and speed, the Valley of Desolation offers something increasingly rare, the profound peace of absolute silence. Once a year, the Namakwaland transforms from a harsh, semi-desert landscape into what can only be described as God's own garden. When the winter rains awaken millions of wildflower seeds that have been waiting patiently beneath the sun-baked earth, the result is a spectacle so breathtaking it seems almost fictional. As far as the eye can see, carpets of orange, yellow, purple, and white flowers stretch to the horizon, turning the normally stark landscape into a living tapestry of color that shifts and flows like a painted sea. This is not just a bloom, it's a resurrection. The Namakwaland daisy, the desert rose, the gazania, and hundreds of other species emerge from their underground hibernation with an urgency that speaks to the miracle of life itself. These flowers don't just grow, They explode into existence, covering rocky outcrops, filling valleys, and climbing hillsides in waves of color so intense they seem to pulse with their own inner light. The transformation is so complete that visitors often struggle to recognize the landscape from photographs taken just weeks before. But the true wonder of Namaqualand isn't just visual, it's temporal. These flowers bloom with the knowledge that their time is short, that the desert will reclaim the land within weeks. There's something deeply moving about this urgency, this burst of beauty that refuses to be constrained by harsh conditions. The indigenous Nama people have watched this cycle for centuries, understanding that the desert's apparent barrenness is actually patience, a promise that beauty will return when the time is right. Standing in a field of Namaqualand daisies, watching them track the sun's movement across the sky like a slow-motion dance, you witness one of nature's most profound lessons, that even in the harshest conditions life finds a way not just to survive, but to create beauty so stunning it takes your breath away. Where the warm waters of the Indian Ocean meet the rugged coastline of the Eastern Cape, the wild coast stretches like a love letter written by the sea to the land. This is not the manicured coastline of tourist brochures. This is coastline in its primal state, where emerald hills roll down to meet beaches that seem to stretch into infinity, where ancient dunes hold secrets older than memory, and where the crash of waves against sandstone cliffs creates a symphony that has been playing since the birth of the oceans. The wild coast earned its name honestly. Here, shipwrecks dot the seafloor like fallen monuments, testament to the power of the sea and the treachery of the rocks. The hole in the wall, a massive natural arch carved by millennia of wave action, stands as perhaps the most iconic symbol of this untamed beauty. Local Xhosa legend tells of ancestral spirits dwelling within the hole and standing before its massive opening, watching the sea surge through with thunderous power. You understand why ancient people might have seen the divine in this place. But the wild coast's true wildness lies not in its danger, but in its authenticity. This is one of the last stretches of African coastline that remains largely untouched by development. Traditional Xhosa villages dot the hillsides, their round huts and cultivated fields, creating a harmony with the landscape that speaks of thousands of years of sustainable living. The people here don't just live on the coast, they live with it, understanding its moods and rhythms, respecting its power while celebrating its beauty. Walking along these beaches at sunset, when the sky turns the color of burnished copper and the sound of traditional singing drifts down from the hills, you realize you're experiencing something that's becoming increasingly rare in our modern world. A place where humans and nature exist in genuine partnership, where the wild remains wild because it's been loved rather than conquered. Number 8, Blyde River Canyon. Carved by water and time into the ancient rock of Mpumalanga, the Blyde River Canyon opens like a green-walled cathedral, its depths plunging 800 meters into a world where mist and light play eternal games among the sandstone cliffs. This is one of the largest canyons on Earth, but its grandeur isn't measured in statistics. It's felt in the way your heart skips when you first peer over the edge at God's window, where the canyon drops away into a seemingly endless expanse of forested mountains and distant plains. The canyon's name means River of Joy in Afrikaans, and standing at viewpoints like the three rondavels, three massive rock formations that rise from the canyon floor like ancient dwellings, you understand why early explorers chose such a name. The Blyde River snakes through the canyon bottom, its waters reflecting the sky in ribbons of silver and blue that seem to flow directly from heaven. But this isn't just a scenic overlook, it's a journey through time itself, where layers of rock tell the story of a continent's formation, where ancient cycads grow in hidden valleys, and where the calls of fish eagles echo off walls that have stood since before the first human footsteps marked the African soil. What makes the Blyde River Canyon truly extraordinary isn't just its size or beauty, it's its aliveness. Unlike the arid grandeur of other great canyons, this one pulses with life. Waterfalls cascade down its walls, indigenous forests carpet its slopes, and the air itself seems to shimmer with humidity and possibility. The indigenous petty people have lived in harmony with this landscape for centuries, understanding that the canyon isn't just a geological feature, it's a living entity, a place where the ancestors dwell and where the boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds becomes permeable. When the mist rolls in at dawn, filling the canyon like a slow-moving river of cloud, you witness something that feels less like weather and more like the breathing of the earth itself. Number 7, the Sudwala Caves. Deep beneath the Mpumalanga Mountains, in chambers that have remained unchanged for millions of years, The Sudwala caves stretch into darkness like the Earth's secret memory. These limestone caverns, some of the oldest in the world, extend for over 30 kilometers into the mountain's heart, their passages and chambers decorated with formations so intricate they seem crafted by master artisans working with stone and time as their only tools. The cave's entrance gives no hint of the wonders within, but descend into their depths, and you enter a world where geology becomes art, where stalactites and stalagmites create cathedral-like spaces filled with formations that bear names like poetry. The screaming monster, the rocket, the low-veld room with its massive chambers that could house a cathedral. The constant temperature of 18 degrees Celsius creates an environment so stable that formations here have grown undisturbed for millions of years, creating a subterranean palace of unimaginable beauty. But the Sudwala caves hold more than geological wonders. They hold human stories. During the Anglo-Boer War, these caves served as ammunition storage for the Boer forces. Later, they became a refuge for local communities during times of conflict. The caves have witnessed the full spectrum of human experience: fear and courage, hiding and revelation, death and rebirth. Standing in their deepest chambers, surrounded by formations that began growing when the first dinosaurs walked the earth, you realize you're in the presence of something that connects the deepest past with the immediate present. The caves don't just preserve limestone formations, they preserve the sense of wonder that comes from discovering that the earth holds secrets we're only beginning to understand. In their silent depths, where the only sounds are the occasional drip of water and the whisper of your own breathing, you encounter a profound truth: that beauty exists not just in the light, but in the darkness, not just on the surface, but in the hidden places where patience and time create miracles. Number 6. Robben Island. 7 kilometers off the coast of Cape Town, surrounded by the cold Atlantic waters and often shrouded in mist, Robben Island stands as one of humanity's most powerful testimonies to the triumph of the human spirit over oppression. For centuries, this small island served as a place of exile and imprisonment. First for political prisoners and social outcasts during the Dutch colonial period, then as a leper colony, and finally as the maximum security prison where Nelson Mandela and other anti-apartheid leaders spent decades of their lives. The island's limestone quarry, where Mandela and his fellow prisoners labored under the brutal African sun, now sits silent, its white walls bearing witness to conversations that would eventually change the course of a nation. The tiny cell where Mandela spent 18 of his 27 years of imprisonment, a space so small you can touch both walls with outstretched arms, seems impossibly inadequate to contain the spirit of the man who emerged from it not broken, but transformed into one of history's greatest leaders. But none of these compare to the spiritual wonder waiting at number 1. Walking through the prison corridors today, guided by former political prisoners who share their stories with a grace that borders on the miraculous, you realize that Robben Island isn't just a monument to suffering, it's a testament to the power of hope. The prisoners here didn't just survive, they studied, they organized, they maintained their humanity in conditions designed to destroy it. They called the island the university because of the political education and personal growth that occurred within its walls. Mandela himself said that he left the island not as a bitter man, but as someone who understood that freedom is not just political, but spiritual. The freedom to choose how you respond to circumstances beyond your control. If this journey is already opening your eyes, don't forget to subscribe. We've only scratched the surface. Number 5. The Garden Route. Between the mountains and the sea, where the Indian Ocean's warm waters meet one of the world's most diverse and beautiful coastlines, the Garden Route unfolds like a living poem, written in forest and foam. This 300-kilometer stretch of paradise between Mossel Bay and Storms River isn't just a scenic drive, it's a journey through every imaginable landscape, from ancient forests where yellowwood trees have stood for over 1,000 years to pristine beaches where right whales come to calve in the protected bays. The route's crown jewel, the Tsitsikamma National Park, protects the last remnants of the Afro-montane forest that once covered much of the southern Cape. Here, the forest floor springs beneath your feet like a living carpet, while overhead the canopy creates a green cathedral where sunlight filters through leaves and golden shafts. The Storms River mouth, where the river carves its way through ancient rock to meet the sea, creates a natural amphitheater where the sound of crashing waves mingles with the calls of fish eagles and the rustle of wind through the forest. But the Garden Route's true magic lies in its transitions. Within the space of a few kilometers, you can walk from indigenous forests to fynbos-covered mountains, from rocky coastlines to gentle lagoons, from the wild to the cultivated. The route passes through charming towns like Naisna, where the famous heads, two massive sandstone cliffs, guard the entrance to a lagoon so beautiful it seems painted, and Plettenberg Bay, where the beaches stretch in perfect crescents of white sand. What makes the garden route truly special isn't just its beauty, it's its accessibility. This is beauty that welcomes you in, that invites exploration rather than demanding endurance. The indigenous Khoi people called this area the place where the forest meets the sea, and that meeting creates a landscape of such gentle perfection that it seems designed to heal the soul. Whether you're walking the canopy walk at Tsitsikama, watching whales breach in Hermanus, or just sitting on a beach in wilderness watching the sun set over the Indian Ocean, the garden route offers something increasingly rare in our modern world. Beauty that asks nothing of you except that you be present to receive it. Number 4, Cape Point. At the southwestern tip of Africa, where two oceans meet in a collision of currents that has shaped both geography and history, Cape Point stands as one of the world's most dramatic landscapes. This is not just the meeting of the Atlantic and Indian Oceans, it's the meeting of mythology and reality, where ancient mariners spoke of the Cape of Storms, and where modern visitors come to witness one of the planet's most spectacular expressions of raw natural power. The Cape's lighthouse, perched on cliffs that plunge 200 meters into the churning waters below, has guided ships around this treacherous point for over a century. But long before the lighthouse, the Cape was guiding something else: the human imagination. Standing on its windswept cliffs, watching the waves crash against rocks that have been shaped by millions of years of ocean fury, you understand why ancient cartographers marked this place as the end of the known world. The horizon here doesn't just stretch to the limit of vision, it seems to curve into infinity. But Cape Point's true power lies not in its geography, but in its symbolism. This is where Vasco da Gama first rounded the Cape in 1497, opening the sea route to Asia and forever changing the course of world history. This is where the Portuguese explorer Bartholomew Dias erected his cross in 1488, marking the southernmost point of Africa that Europeans had reached. The Cape has witnessed the passage of countless ships, carrying explorers, traders, slaves, and immigrants, each journey writing another line in the story of human movement and cultural exchange. The indigenous Khoi people knew this place long before European sailors arrived, calling it the place where the sea ends. But for them, it wasn't an ending, it was a beginning, a place where the physical world opened into the spiritual realm. Standing at Cape Point today, watching the sun set over waters that stretch unbroken to Antarctica, you feel the weight of all this history, all these journeys, all these moments when humans have stood at the edge of the known world and chosen to venture into the unknown. The Cape doesn't just mark the meeting of oceans, it marks the meeting of courage and fear, of the familiar and the unknown, of the human and the infinite. Number 3, Kruger National Park. In the Lowveld of northeastern South Africa, where the ancient rhythms of predator and prey, drought and rain, birth and death continue as they have for millions of years, Kruger National Park sprawls across nearly 20,000 square kilometers of wilderness that represents Africa in its purest form. This isn't just a game reserve, it's a living library of evolution, where every species tells a story of adaptation, survival, and the delicate balance that maintains life itself. The park's fame rests on the Big Five: elephant, lion, leopard, rhino, and buffalo. But its true magnificence lies in the intricate web of relationships that connects every creature, from the smallest dung beetle to the largest elephant. Watch a herd of elephants move through the Mopane woodland, their ancient intelligence evident in every gesture, and you're witnessing behavior patterns that have remained unchanged for millennia. Listen to the roar of a lion echoing across the savannah at dawn, and you're hearing a sound that has struck awe into human hearts since our species first walked upright. But Kruger's deepest power lies in its ability to connect you with something primal and essential. In a world increasingly dominated by human concerns, the park offers a glimpse of Earth as it existed before cities, before agriculture, before the human species began to reshape the planet. Here, time moves differently. The urgent concerns of modern life fade into insignificance when you're watching a leopard drag its kill up a marula tree, or witnessing the tender interaction between a mother rhino and her calf, or sitting in silence as a herd of buffalo emerges from the bush, like ghosts materializing from the thorns. The park's landscape tells the story of Africa itself, from the granite kopjes where ancient sand people painted their visions, to the riverine forests where massive sycamore figs create cathedrals of green, to the open grasslands where the great herds move in patterns as old as the continent. Indigenous peoples have lived in harmony with these lands for thousands of years, understanding that humans are not separate from nature but part of its complex web. In Kruger, you don't just observe wildlife, you remember what it means to be wild yourself, to be part of something larger than human civilization, to belong to the ancient community of life that connects all living things. Number 2. Table Mountain. Rising from the heart of Cape Town like a sleeping giant, Table Mountain stands as one of the world's most recognizable landmarks, its flat summit creating a table for the gods themselves. But, this isn't just a mountain. It's a living museum of evolution, home to more plant species than the entire British Isles, a repository of botanical treasures that exists nowhere else on Earth. The mountain's sandstone cliffs, carved by wind and weather over millions of years, change color throughout the day, from gold at sunrise to deep purple at sunset, creating a backdrop so dramatic it seems designed by an artist with unlimited imagination. The mountain's famous tablecloth, the cloud formation that spills over its edges during southeast winds, creates one of nature's most spectacular displays. According to local legend, the tablecloth forms when the devil and a pirate named Van Hunks have a smoking contest on the mountain's slopes, their pipe smoke creating the clouds that cascade down the cliffs like a slow-motion waterfall. But the scientific explanation is equally magical. The mountain's unique shape and position create a microclimate that turns moisture from the sea into clouds that seem to flow like liquid over the cliff edges. But honestly, Table Mountain's true significance lies deeper than its visual impact. This is one of the world's oldest mountains. Its rocks formed over 500 million years ago when the supercontinent Gondwana was still intact. The mountain has witnessed the birth of the Atlantic Ocean, the movement of continents, the evolution of life itself. Its sandstone foundation is built from sediments deposited when the first complex life forms were emerging in ancient seas. Standing on its summit, looking out over the two oceans that meet at Cape Point, you're standing on a piece of Earth's early history, a stone witness to the planet's transformation. The indigenous Khoi people called the mountain Horikwago, mountain in the sea, and understood it as a sacred place where the physical and spiritual worlds intersected. Climbing its slopes today, whether by foot or cable car, you feel the weight of this sacredness. The mountain doesn't just dominate Cape Town's skyline, it defines the city's soul, reminding its residents daily that they live in the shadow of something ancient, enduring, and infinitely larger than human concerns. Number 1. The Cradle of Humankind. In the rolling hills northwest of Johannesburg, where grassland meets thorn trees and time seems to stretch backward into the deepest past, lies the place where the human story began. The Cradle of Humankind isn't just a fossil site, it's the birthplace of consciousness itself, where our ancient ancestors first walked upright, first made tools, first gazed up at the stars and wondered about their place in the universe. This is where Lucy's cousins lived and died, where the Australopithecines that would eventually give rise to modern humans took their first tentative steps toward humanity. The limestone caves of Sterkfontein, Swartkrans and Kromdraai have yielded more hominin fossils than anywhere else on Earth. Mrs. Plez, Littlefoot and countless other ancient remains tell the story of our species' long journey from the trees to the stars. But standing among these fossil sites, you realize that the Cradle of Humankind isn't just about the past, it's about the future. This is where humans first began to ask the questions that still drive us today. Who are we? Where did we come from? What is our purpose? The landscape itself seems designed to inspire such questions. The Magaliesberg Mountains rise in the distance like sleeping giants, their ancient slopes covered in grassland that has remained virtually unchanged for millions of years. The same plants that fed our ancestors still grow here. The same birds that sang when the first humans walked these hills still fill the air with their calls. This isn't just a museum of human evolution, it's a living laboratory where the story of our species continues to unfold. But the cradle's deepest significance lies not in what it tells us about our past, but in what it reveals about our future. Understanding that we are all descendants of these early humans, that we all share a common African heritage, transforms how we see ourselves and each other. The fossil evidence shows us that human evolution wasn't a straight line from primitive to advanced. It was a complex story of adaptation, cooperation, and survival that required our ancestors to work together, to share resources, to care for the vulnerable. In the Cradle of Humankind, we don't just discover where we came from, we remember who we really are. Standing in these ancient caves, holding a replica of a 3.3 million-year-old skull, you feel the weight of deep time pressing down on your shoulders. But you also feel something else, a profound connection to every human who has ever lived, a recognition that we are all part of the same story, all children of the same ancient African soil. The Cradle of Humankind doesn't just preserve our past, it illuminates our shared humanity, reminding us that beneath all the divisions of race, culture, and nationality, we are one species, one family, one people who emerged from the red earth of Africa to fill the world with wonder. South Africa doesn't just offer beauty, it offers transformation. Every wonder on this journey, from the ancient depths of the Sudwala Caves to the windswept summit of Table Mountain, from the fossil-rich soil of the Cradle of Humankind to the pristine beaches of the Garden Route, carries within it the power to change how you see the world and your place in it. This is a land where the very stones whisper stories of resilience, where the landscape itself teaches lessons about survival and beauty, where the meeting of cultures and the collision of histories have created something entirely new under the African sun. These 12 wonders aren't just destinations, they're invitations to remember that we are part of something larger than ourselves, something ancient and enduring and infinitely precious. In a world that often feels fractured and uncertain, South Africa offers a reminder that beauty and meaning can emerge from the most unlikely places, that hope can flourish even in the harshest conditions, and that the human spirit, like the wildflowers of Namakwa land, can bloom with stunning beauty even in the most challenging circumstances. If this journey moved you, subscribe and share the beauty with someone else. Some places change what you see, others change what you feel. South Africa changes what you believe is possible. Until the next journey, stay curious.